Hello and welcome to another edition of Maritime Gateway's Digital Dialogue. Today we have a guest with us, Ms. Sanjam Sahi. Besides being director of Sitara Shipping, Sanjam is the brainchild behind Maritime SheEO. An advocate for diversity in the maritime industry, she is the go-to person for gender issues in the Indian maritime industry as well as overseas. She has been working in maritime industry since 2001 and also a founder member of Women's International Shipping and Trading Association, Vista India. She is a member of the executive board, World Maritime University, based in Malmö, Sweden. In 2014, the International Women's Leadership Forum awarded her Leading Women in Shipping Business. As an ambassador of Sailor Society in India, she is committed to seafarers' welfare. In 2018, she was a major force in bringing out the Diversity Handbook, representing Vista International along with ISWAN and Anglo-Eastern. In May 2018, she was the recipient of the Sandvik Gender Award for her outstanding contribution and commitment to gender equality. She is a member of the Diversity Committee constituted by the International Chamber of Shipping in February 2020. Welcome to the Digital Dialogue, Ms. Sanjam. It's a great pleasure to have you with us today.
Likewise, thank you so much. It's indeed a pleasure to be here today.
So when I was reading your introduction, whole paragraph is filled with a lot of diversity issues. So let us begin talking about diversity. You have been a champion of bringing gender diversity in shipping industry. So can you give me an insight into what is the status of women in our industry and what are the typical challenges they face when they want to rise to the leadership positions?
Since you were our partner in bringing out the 2018 Sandvik survey, which went on to be the report in 2019, and I'll draw some references from that survey itself, where we spoke to over 200 employers and over 1,000 women in maritime. What we find is that today, definitely, I feel the status is much better than what it was, say, 20 years back. We have more women in the forefront. We have more visible role models coming forward, but we're still stuck in the same situation where we have the first CMD of SCI, the first maritime pilot in India. So we're still at a stage where we're stuck on the firsts, and we need to move beyond that and create more women leaders and more women in maritime so that they stop being the only women there, and we need to have more such women come up. So I think in that sense, we've achieved quite a bit, but we need to kind of push this agenda further, and it's time to stop being patient and time to really start focusing on results now.
So where is the challenge? Is it from the working women in the industry, or is it the mindset of the either corporations or companies?
I think it's a little bit of both. So on one hand, I think there are a lot of women out there who really want to participate and do well and rise to these leadership positions. But I think they also hold themselves back. Women are less likely to apply for promotions, to put their hand up, to speak first at board meetings, at industry gatherings. They kind of shy back. So I think a little bit, the push has to be done from the women. They need to step forward. They need to go ahead and grab all the opportunities that come forward to them. But at the same time, I think what the companies and what the industry needs to do, and it's their responsibility, is to create an ambience or an atmosphere that is conducive for women to come forward, where they feel more welcome. A very senior woman in maritime said that when she joined the board, they didn't know what to do with her because she was the only or the first woman on the board. And I don't think that it's a conscious thing that people try to block women. It's just that there are women now entering arenas in the boardroom in positions where there were none. And they are not used to or accustomed to having women on board. So I think it's really required to have a lot of gender sensitization, a lot of awareness, because when you're also hiring, you tend to hire somebody who looks like you. So if everybody, the board is full of gentlemen, and it's much likely that they feel that a gentleman would fit in. So I think it's those mindsets that we need to push, and the more and more women that come forward, I think it would become easier. But I think the initial push has to be done from the industry.
So you feel that's the way the changes should come. You have been advocating and trying to sensitize the companies or governments around you. So what was the response from these interactions, and how is currently the policy or legislature framework towards making more women rise into the higher positions?
So starting with the industry, most people that I speak to are either believers or non-believers. So when they are believers, I find most of them believe in women for women's sake. They believe it's the right thing to do. But as a business person myself, I know how important it is to look at your bottom lines, right? So it's time to start thinking about having women because it's the right thing to do. There has to be a business case behind it. And therein that's why we did this research in 2020 to show that there is actually a business case for diversity, and why hiring more women, having a diverse workforce means better results, better productivity, better innovation, teamwork, and profits. So that's one aspect where I feel that there are a lot of people who believe in diversity, who believe that there should be more women, but they don't understand the implications behind having more women, or they don't have the right resources to probably roll down that down by hiring more women, attracting more women, having more women in the workforce. So the intent is there, but they don't know how. And then they need a lot of hand holding and guiding. Big companies have huge resources at their disposal. They can easily implement these programs. But what about small and mid-sized companies? They need a lot of support in this respect. Coming to the non-believers, I think that is very critical, because I think for them, they really don't think that women have a place, whether it's on board a ship or on shore. And I think it's just important to kind of convince them with more research or with more best practices. So I think that is a very big hurdle that needs to be crossed. With regards to legislation, I believe that in India, we're providing equal opportunities. But there are still certain places, like for example in ports, where women are not allowed to work after dark. And while we're trying to protect the women because it's for their safety, I think it's also kind of creating a hurdle there for the women. So we need to find a way where we can have more women, say, in operational positions, giving them the opportunity and not having those hurdles where we are saying, okay, you can't enter the port after dark because it's not safe for you. Why is it not safe for you? It is the responsibility for the industry to make it safe. A lot of people say we don't want to put women on ships because it's not safe for them. But it's our responsibility to make sure the ship is safe to receive the women. Where people don't want to go, that is easier just not to have women at all. So that is, I think, the crux of the matter. And unless we kind of go ahead and change the mindsets of those people, nothing's really going to change.
Okay, as part of your advocacy drive, you have started this Maritime SheEO. You coined a new word, and you're making it a phenomenon. And recently, in the month of November, you organized a major conference, bringing a lot of global leaders also who are supporting the gender diversity, who are already working in this field. So, what was the response? What was the objective of this conference, and what are the key takeaways from this conference?
So initially the intent was to have the conference physically in March in India with around a group of 150 people, and then the pandemic struck. We intended to launch the Maritime SheEO Leadership Accelerator program, and this was a way to kind of get the industry involved. But I think with the pandemic coming in, we realized that we had to go virtual, and this presented a huge opportunity. And while we didn't envisage that it would grow so big, I think the objective was to get the industry stakeholders together. So if you say that the conference had industry stakeholders from all the verticals, from ship owning to the freight forwarding, every single aspect was covered. We had close to 1,600 people attend from 77 different countries. We had close to 70 speakers from 25 different countries. And I think the major objective was to get the industry all together, to stop talking in our silos, and to kind of get everybody on one field where we can speak and exchange views on what we can do to make the industry a better place. I think that was achieved really well. And to be honest, I was overwhelmed because I didn't expect that it would go so well. But I really am humbled and I'm very grateful that it went that way. And I think that puts a huge responsibility on us, because some of the takeaways that we took from the conference, it is now our responsibility to make sure those things, are translated into action. So the first and the foremost important thing, what came out through all the talks and the panels, is that there is a major need for gender sensitization, for awareness in the industry. Now, this is the biggest challenge because one, you cannot measure how much you have done for gender sensitization. You can't do it and can't go back and say, okay, we've sensitized so many people, because you really can't measure those results. But nevertheless, that has to be done. And that's, I think, a key part of what needs to be done. And that can be done in different ways. We can have male allies advocating. We can have more visible female role models. And of course, actually put people through these gender sensitization programs. The second thing is obviously with regards to policy, whether we're talking about the government of India or whether we're talking at the IMO, when they speak to the member states. I think what's really needed is to push it from top down. And by that, I don't mean we need to have quotas. I'm very much against quotas, but at the same time, I think there need to be some sort of policies there to protect women, especially, I think, procedures to protect the interests of female seafarers. Personally, I have handled a lot of cases of harassment of women seafarers across the globe. And despite having them speak to positions of authority, in the end, there's no proof. And what happens is, the sad reality is that the woman is not hired again by that company. And the culprit per se gets away scot-free, and she is labeled a troublemaker. I think that is something that really needs to change. We need to have procedures to safeguard these interests of women. Finally, I think the best practices that were shared were most inspiring. And I think the people who are doing this, the companies that are sharing the best practices with us, these stories need to be told, because other companies kind of should be inspired and should think that, yeah, if they can do it, I can do it too. It's doable. It's not something that we can't do. And I think the whole objective of getting the best practices, panel and even awarding these companies was to get other companies to sit up and say, okay, I want to be there next year, and that's what I want to do, and this is doable. So I hope people can pull up their socks, and next year we have so many more stories to share.
I'm sure during the deliberations, a lot of ideas, action plan must have come. One of the things I understand is that IMO wanted to get associated with the Accelerator program. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, so that was a very exciting development, and I think super excited about that. The Women Leadership Accelerator program that we had originally designed as a physical program, and wherein we were going to get support from various corporates, they had pledged their support, went on a back burner because of the pandemic, and corporates were not able to fund it. And then when the conference came on, the IMO questioned us, asking what happened to your accelerator program. And we said, you know what, we're kind of stuck up. And in an amazing development, they actually announced that because the Women's Day theme for 2021 by the UN Women is for women in leadership positions, to support that objective, they would be sponsoring or funding women from developing countries to go through our accelerator program. And we would be launching it in March. So I think it's a great development. And by going virtual, we have so many more opportunities to reach so many more women. And while the IMO was intending to have all these women fly down to India to do the Leadership Accelerator in March, okay, when you're starting the program, we would like to also support it. So I think that's a huge, huge opportunity. And as a matter of pride for me, because I believe as an Indian, and first and foremost, I think that we are going to get that opportunity to train these women from across the various developing countries, across continents, to undergo this rigorous leadership accelerator. And that is the term that we had coined for Maritime SheEO, creating the next generation of women leaders. that is our ultimate goal, and the Leadership Accelerator would be working towards that goal. And now that we're doing the first batch global, I think I couldn't have asked for anything more.
So how does this program work? How many women can be trained, and how to take part in this program?
So the IMO is going to actually set out the application process. They haven't decided on the total number of women, but we are looking at around 15 women. They would be handpicking these women who are working mainly with the regulatory bodies or with the governments, because IMO, the member states, they want to support them. So I believe that primarily the women would be invited to apply from the member states who are working in the regulatory bodies with the government. And beyond that, I think we're going to have to wait till Jan, because we're still waiting for the IMO to give us like a green signal to go ahead and announce all the details.
So other than the accelerated program, what is on your agenda for 2021 and beyond?
There's a lot to be done, clearly. The Accelerator program was the main basis of what we started Maritime, but I think we realized that we can't stop there. So I've been approached by a lot of corporates, by a lot of associations, where they want to be able to develop manuals or handbooks on how to sensitize their people on board ships and on shore. So I think the next major step is to ensure that we have these resources available to industry. Resources available so that when they are recruiting, at the time of interviewing, or say, for example, they have an all-male panel of people interviewing, they should be able to rely on certain resources that we provide them, right from the recruitment to the induction, to the promotion, to make sure that we are able to give industry that sort of support system. Secondly, we think that we need to have more material available. So we're working on also doing a video where we would be actually having a lot of sensitization. That video would be available across the globe on various ships, and that would kind of help people understand that when there's a woman on board, what are the things to be done and not to be done. The third aspect is we're thinking of coming up with a best practices guide for the industry. We highlighted 4 or 5 stories at the conference, but there are so many more stories to be told. And lastly, I think there are so many women in maritime. We need to kind of focus on all of them and get them visibility. So we're working on empowering women through various aspects. One of them is mentoring, to mentor these women, to conduct more research, because the more research we have, the more data we have, that's when people actually sit back and say, okay, we need to take this seriously. So that's a few things that we have planned for the coming year.
Sanjam, in the last 7-8 years that we have known you, you have brought the gender diversity issue onto the center stage, either through Vista India or subsequently through Maritime SheEO. Now people are more aware of these issues, and at least they are talking about it. They are willing to sit with you and then discuss these issues.
Thank you so much. And may I also take this opportunity to thank you, Mr. Ram Prasad. You have known me since when I was wet behind the ears and very, very new to the industry. And I think it's kudos to gentlemen like you who have actually selflessly supported me in my quest without, really wanting anything in return. And it's really heartening to see gentlemen like you who step up to support the women. And I'd like to give one example, if you allow me. At most of the industry dinners and gatherings where the Vista women are invited, they are usually given a table or somewhere, or they're put somewhere in a corner. But there's an incident I'd like to share where you had, I think, the 10th anniversary celebration of the Containers India, and we were sitting at the dinner, and I think somebody asked you, where should the Vista women seat themselves? And you said anywhere. And you did not put us in a corner. You did not want to kind of sideline them. And I think we need more gentlemen like you. You are already an ambassador for us. So Thank you for this, what you do to support us. And I'm sure together we are stronger, and together we can really create a better maritime industry for all of us.
Thank you so much for those kind words. And I'm also happy to be associated in your all your initiatives, and Maritime Gateway and myself personally will be associated with these activities and lend support wherever we can. Thank you so much for joining with us today and sharing a lot of insights into gender diversity issues. Thank you very much, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much.